Welcome to one of the past HSC exam question videos. In this exam question video, we're going to cover this exam question, which comes from the 2004 HSC paper, and that is worth 3 marks. It's question 20. While doing the second, I'll read the actual question. Once I've done the question, write the question in about 3 seconds to pause the video. Once you pause the video, attempt the question, and then when you're ready, press play, and I'll go over the actual answer itself. So the question is, identify one type of T lymphocytes that's worth 1 mark, and B is distinguish between the function of B cells and T cells, and that's worth 2 marks. So when you're ready, pause the video and attempt the question. Welcome back. Alright, so first one, just identify one type of T lymphocyte. So in this case, the marking guideline says correctly identification of one type of T cell with 1 mark, right? So you could have mentioned any of these. You could have also said the T inducer cell, right? So we've got the T suppressor, T inducer, T killer, T memory, T helper, cytotoxic T cell. Any of these would have done to get you your 1 mark. You just identify means just name it. So what I did is I wrote T helper cell is one type of T lymphocyte, and that will get you your mark. The next part was distinguish between functions of B and T cell. Remember, but distinguish means we need to be able to tell the difference between. So tell the difference between the functions of B cell and T cell. So we need to say something that will tell the difference between the B and T cells. So to get full marks, you should have demonstrated the understanding of the difference between T and B cells and relate function to the role in the immune response. So we should say what they do, but description, so if you just say what they do by itself, you only get 1 mark. So you actually need to say what they do, but also relate that to the role of the immune response and how these responses are different, right? So the T cells, for example, are responsible for the cell-mediated immune response, whereas the B cells are responsible for the humoral immune response. Remember, the T cells, so that's the cell-mediated, means they kill infected cells, right? So cell-mediated means they target foreign cells or infected cells, whereas the humoral immune response means they target antigens which are in the blood or in other parts of the fluid, right? Humoral, this here means fluid. So humoral immune response will just target anything that is in fluid. So that could be extracellular fluid, blood, or lymph. Whereas these T cells, they will actually kill cells. So it's slightly different. Humoral immune response targets different substances in blood, fluid, whereas the T cells, what they will do is they will directly kill the cells that are infected or foreign cells, right? So basically you should have done that, put that into your actual description, and then outline it. Using that, outline the difference between the two. So what I wrote is the T helper cells activate B cells, that's one of the roles, and are responsible for the cell-mediated immune response. That is, they destroy foreign cells and viruses and virus-infected cells by injecting toxins into these cells that kill them, right? So they work by injecting toxins into them, and thereby killing them, and they kill cells. Whereas the B cells are responsible for the humoral immune response. They destroy or immobilize pathogens and bacterial toxins in the blood and body fluid by the production of antibodies that target their antigens, right? So we've said, okay, the B lymphocytes produce antibodies, which will target antigens in blood and the actual lymph or extracellular fluid, whereas T cells will directly kill other cells, especially virus-infected cells or transplanted cells, by injecting toxins into them. I could actually have done a bit better of a job, and I left it this way so I can kind of highlight that better job that I could have done. Whilst this is stating the function and more or less telling the difference, I did more or less say the difference. I should have maybe had one statement that just made it clear, right? So the T cells deal with cells, whereas the B cells deal with anything in blood or fluid. I could have said that both of these are necessary for the full immune response to happen. Without them, either the blood would not be protected by the B cells, or the cells won't be protected by the T cells. So making sure in your answer or in the future when you see distinguish, make sure you do make that point where you can have a statement that clearly says this is how they're different. So state their function, but also say this is how their functions are different, and this is why they're still important. So hopefully that was useful.